got a nice inclination to do a video on Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s career, because saying as I know how to use the screen recording equipment now. So there we see his stats, his stance, his division, when he made his debut, where he's born, his aliases and his stance, his reach, his career, as we see. Perfect record. But I'm going to go and not put too fine a tooth comb through it, but I'm definitely going to have a good look at his career, and I'm not going to spend too long on over his career. Let me see if I can get more screen space. So we'll go to his title fight. There, Gennaro Hernandez. Right, I remember this fight, I believe, I may be wrong, but there was one here where it kind of ended prematurely, like in the second round, and like there was a whole issue about it. But this one, now I've watched this actually this year, I believe, and yeah, this was a skilled guy. This was a guy who had experience. As we saw, he was in a winning streak on the way to fighting Floyd. And Floyd basically had a punch-perfect performance. A lot of front foot stuff, a lot of skill. We've seen Floyd's got a great stance. He keeps a nice arch in his knees, and he really showed it here. And he really, for what, 21-year-old man, done incredible. So, yeah, this was the start of people knew that Floyd was something a bit special. Now let's get into talk about possibly my favourite Floyd performance, and definitely deservedly so. Diego Corrales fight. Now Diego Corrales was kind of seen as the best 130-pound fighter in the world, and Floyd fought him, and Floyd fought him when he was undefeated. And this was when I think, when I look back, I think, man, Floyd he used to take on such great opposition, took on a undefeated Diego Corrales, and it was a very one-sided performance actually. And it was so one-sided, he was throwing nice hooks, dropping Corrales. I think he dropped Corrales 3 or 4 times in the fight, and despite being significantly shorter, not having significantly shorter reach, but being significantly shorter in height, he was able to really put a beating on Corrales and, outman him, outpunch him, and ultimately he got the TKO, and that was a 5-star matchup. That's not, now I believe this isn't necessarily like the performance or the opponent, but the competitiveness of the matchup on paper or what have you. Now the Emmanuel Augustus, it was alright performance. I'll not really talk too much about that. Now everyone believes that Floyd lost this first Jose Luis Castillo fight. He did spend a lot of time on the ropes. He wasn't just being as offensive as he usually is. He was being more sort of defensive. And yeah, it's understandable, it was a close fight. And Floyd was actually, so he was at lightweight at this time, which I think maybe was his best weight, in terms of the performances he done. But Floyd actually, yeah, he was, people were doubting him a little bit. And so he had the rematch. He won against Castillo on the UD. The rematch, he used a lot better movement and a lot better jab, and his famous jab to the body. And to be honest, yeah, that was a great. that was much of a better performance that we knew Floyd could do. And, you know, then we thought, well, he's better than Castillo. He beat him. He's a better fighter. Now, Floyd dismantled Endo, picked him apart. It was like picking wings off an insect. But I don't understand Endo having more stars than Corley. Not that Corley was amazing, but surely Corley was better than Endo. Maybe not at the time, I don't know. Corley gave Floyd a little bit of problems. Floyd's not great against southpaws. Now he beats them. He usually beats them quite well, but he's not really. He has trouble with. But Corley was quite an entertaining performance. And this was at light welter when Floyd started to, guys could take the shots better. Now this is one of my better choices here, Gatti. Not in terms of opponent, in terms of entertainment, because Floyd showed versatility. He showed shot selection. He showed a front foot game. Really, he showed a lot of skill, but it was kind of a Oscar De La Hoya leftovers. And this is what people at the time were saying about Oscar De La Hoya. Floyd was fighting leftovers like Gatti. Now, I think Floyd should have fought Hatton or Cotto at this time. Now, Hatton was champion since about 2005. So maybe, Hatton might not have been champion when Floyd fought Henry Brussels. But if he's calling himself the pound for pound best, he has to be fighting. He has to have names like a Miguel Cotto here and a Ricky Hatton here. Or one of them, not both of them necessarily. And Gatti's still a nice name to have, regardless of, if you have a guy in his prime in there too. You can't really be bad to that. Judah was a good win. Once again, southpaw had trouble. Floyd had a hell of a lot of trouble with Judah through the early rounds. He actually had a knockdown. I don't believe it was called. It wasn't it was a flash knockdown. It was a glove touching the canvas kind of knockdown. An off balance knockdown. And this was a good example of how Floyd could be beat if it was countered when he was countering, and if a guy had fast straight shots with plenty of movement, that this guy could be beat. Definitely, that Floyd was not unbeatable. In the Judah fight, we saw more of the defensive Floyd, where he's not great coming forward. But nonetheless, a good win. Now Judah had already lost to Kostya and actually Baldomir, but he was, it wasn't really past it at this point. And this one, the IBF. Baldomir actually won it off Judah, but couldn't pay the fees, so Judah got to keep it. So really, Floyd was fighting for Baldomir's belts, but he fought Baldomir directly after, and look, he unified a bit, and then he went on to fight for, this WBC, which would be his go-to championship that's another thing I have to kind of criticise, but nonetheless, we'll get to that. Now, I mentioned this guy earlier, Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton was really a light welterweight, and I'm not trying to criticise Floyd for this, but I'm just saying that he could have fought Ricky Hatton for the IBF light welterweight championship, and then it would have looked far better than fighting Ricky Hatton at a weight class above. But the Ricky Hatton win is still impressive, and how he managed to stop Ricky Hatton, who, let's face it, was one of the best out there at the time. Not welterweight, but definitely a light welterweight, and Floyd's a small guy too, so it's not like he was too much of a size advantage. So let me get on to Hatton in a second in depth, but let's talk about Oscar. Now, Oscar, 34 I believe at the time. I think he came off a good win against the Nicaraguan chain smoker who beat Vernon Forrest. Is it Ricardo Mayorga? And he had a dominant display there. De La Hoya, for my money, actually has the better resume than Floyd. Now, that's controversial, I know. Floyd clearly was better because he beat De La Hoya, understandably so. But De La Hoya fought a lot of guys in their primes and, beat a lot. But this was a good idea for Floyd, for a business and for a legacy. Fighting at a De La Hoya, and Floyd was really quite small in there beside him, but he won a close decision, and it was a great fight, and all kudos to both guys for making it happen. Good build up, great 24/7 behind the scenes. I believe because Mayweather Senior trains De La Hoya, he had Freddie Roach there instead, and Freddie Roach, as we know, was a good offensive coach. Probably one of the best guys that De La Hoya could have had, but ultimately Floyd was too smart for De La Hoya. But it was a close fight. So Ricky Hatton was undefeated, so kudos for fighting undefeated. Guy in Hatton was a 2-weight world champion at this time, so kudos for that. So Hatton was coming off a good win streak. Hatton stopped a common opponent in Jose Luis Castillo on a body shot. Castillo was definitely a lot older by this point and had seen better days, but Hatton called Floyd out on television after the fight. They had another great build up, and it was a good fight. Hatton caused some problems, but ultimately the kind of Russian style, not Russian as in the country, but rushing Floyd, smothering him, didn't really work. Floyd actually showed that he could fight well on the inside and was physically strong forehand, and knocked him out in the 10th with a great check hook. Now, Marquez, that was a easy enough victory for Floyd. Really much too big and too defensively good. Mosley, Mosley was past it, really, when he fought Floyd. But, nonetheless, he'd done a good account of himself. As did Floyd, by the way. Not much else to say. Nice, I suppose, for the resume. And Canelo went and fought Mosley when Mosley was even older again, so that has to be said. Ortiz, I'm just going to skip. No disrespect to Ortiz, but yeah. Cotto, good name. Only 2 losses to Pacquiao and Trout, so still a good version of Cotto. Cotto threw a nice powerful jab, kept Floyd honest to be real, but Floyd was able to show great shot selection. He was good in the pocket, he was game, strong, good jab, good lateral movement. Impressive performance. Fairly entertaining, so respect for that one. Guerrero, I thought Guerrero shouldn't really be in the ring, so I don't think that's really a 5-star performance. Saul Alvarez. Oh dear, what did I do? Massive kudos to Floyd. Beat Alvarez. Alvarez didn't really win a round. Absolutely fantastic win in retrospect. Wow, really good. Alvarez has gone on to, do great things and carve his own way. What a win. Okay, I'm kind of gonna get through this. Pacquiao, again, much older. Good win, yes, but bad way of doing it. Could have done more, in my opinion. Berto, well, Guerrero already beat Berto. We saw what Floyd done with Guerrero. Not triangle theories or everything, but yeah, and then Conor McGregor. Well, the less said about that, the better. Overall, Hall of Fame career. Probably the best welterweight since Sugar Ray Leonard. And just an incredible fighter. Will go down in history as the top 5 welterweight champions of all time. But a little bit overhyped and not necessarily the most bravest of taking on the worthiest challengers in his heyday. Sometimes very selective about opponents because he knew that he could beat everybody. No one can, not even a Roy Jones or a Muhammad Ali, or Mike Tyson. So no, Floyd wasn't going to either. But nonetheless, great skills, very intelligent in the ring. Like when you break it down, technically, excellent stuff. Well done, Floyd. A great career. And that's it.